Welcome to the Eventful podcast, where real conversations meet big ideas.
This is where the real journey gets shared.
It's honest,
It's inspiring.
and it's always eventful. Welcome to the Eventful podcast, presented by Prospect Events. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we are going to do a solo episode surrounding how we've changed as people and how our lives have changed since starting our business. So I'll start by asking a question. What is the single biggest change in your life or shift in your life that first comes to mind when thinking about who you were and where you were in life before starting this business to almost 7 years later today?
Being put on the spot over here. I think the biggest change has been self-confidence for me. I think part of it is an age thing as well, because I have more years of experience just in life too, and perspective on life. But I think that I always wanted to have my own business, and we've talked about that a bit in the previous episodes. However, I kind of had a lot of self-doubt, and I still have periods of self-doubt. However, I struggled a lot with self-confidence in my 20s and honestly 30s. And I think that having had the business and seeing that it has grown and that I'm capable of doing it has made me believe in myself more and have more confidence that has been able to be carried out in various aspects of my life, not just with business. So yeah, I would say that is probably the most life-changing aspect of having my business. And I also think to tie into that is, things don't always go how you want them, and that's okay. But the other part to this would be knowing that no matter what, even if it's a bad outcome or a good outcome, that you're going to be okay. So that ties into being self-confident, but also a huge aspect. Like, even if something very, very stressful happens, I know that it's some way it'll work itself out, whether it's a bad outcome, like I said, or a good outcome. We move forward and we don't just keep dwelling upon it. How about you, Jess?
I would say probably the biggest change is taking control of my own destiny as much as I possibly can. I think Meredith and I actually have, which we love, we have a co-founder business coach and that specializes in co-founder relationships and dynamics. And we did an Enneagram test, which I had a good idea of what I was. However, I am an 8 wing 7. If you know anything about Enneagrams, that means something. But when I was reading through all of the qualities of my results, I'm somebody, as you know, who my high school English teacher always used to say, if it is to be, it is up to me. And that it sounds cheesy, but that has really impacted me. And I think it's impacted our business in the way that, at least on my end, like our business has grown and in the work that I've done. I don't think 8s are controlling, but they like to be in control of their lane. So, or maybe they are controlling. Who knows? We'll have to ask Nathan. But I would say that when we were working in-house, which that's, owning a business is not the right path for everyone, certainly, because it's really challenging. But I did not like having to rely on an organization or certain executives or higher ups for the path of my future. Like, that feels very out of control for me. And there are, of course, things that are out of control with running a business. However, I think with running your own business, there are limitations. Somebody asked me if I could go out on a boat today, and I'm like, I have to work. I can't abandon my business for a day to go on a boat, even though that sounds amazing. That's just a small example of some sacrifices. They're always working. However, the sacrifices that you make leads to a lot of possibilities outside of that, where I think when I had a full-time job in-house, I didn't have as much flexibility. And now, I mean, we can essentially live wherever we want. We can, as long as our schedule isn't crazy and its event cycles are cyclical throughout the year, we can take the days that we want, take the trips that we want, and hire who we want. And if we have growth plans, we're the only ones who can make that happen. Nobody else can make that happen. So it really is, it's a lot of pressure. but it gives you this flexibility and control to kind of hone the path that you want. And I think for me, that's been the most empowering thing among other things.
It's a lot to unfold.
It is. I mean, 7 years. I would say the other thing that kind of ties into what you were saying, because I agree with that as well. I just didn't want to have the same answer as you. But I would say that realizing that I'm smart, I think that there's something, and not to get into the whole men and women thing, but there's something about men where I've heard this in podcasts or on TikTok or whatever, where they walk into a room and they just know that they're smart and they have this confidence of, I mean, even if they're not, but they just have this confidence of like how I'm going to make these things happen for myself. Whereas I feel like women just in general, or at least just speaking for myself, and of course age is a factor too, as you mentioned, but I didn't have the best grades in school. I mentioned in an earlier episode that I enjoyed marketing, but I didn't really have this thing that I was like really, really good and passionate about. Events were fun to do in my 20s and traveling the world and this and that. But I never really found this thing to do that I was really, really passionate about until we started our business. And I think the answer to that now is running a business. And I think this unfolding of me enjoying running a business and also being kind of good at it and it sort of feeding me has been really interesting and really fun. And so I think from a confidence perspective, when things go right, you're like, oh, I did that and I'm smart. Even if people doubted me, I'm smart. So that's been big.
I think for me too, just to kind of tie into that, and it actually ties into another episode that we're doing with Joni Landorf, who is a big part of Girls Inc. And what she's doing is trying to instill a lot of confidence in young women. But similarly to that, I think I was never, a straight A student. I don't do great on traditional academics. I am a terrible test taker. That's how they measured intelligence growing up. I think nowadays there's other ways, but I was always extremely artistic and that was my outlet. However, I was always extremely self-conscious of the fact that I wasn't, getting straight A's in math or anything. I really, really struggled a lot with school. And so to what you're saying, Jess, I feel a lot smarter now than I ever did. And I know that I was smart, but I just measured it in a very different way. So yeah, I can attest to that.
Yeah. My friend in college did all my finance homework for me in my business finance classes. So, and now I do our business finance. So, all of that to say, I think it's just piggybacking off of what you just mentioned. You don't know what you're good at or what you're not good at. It's interesting because my niece is about to start college. And so she just graduated from high school. And at her graduation party, I was just telling her how proud I am of her. And I just said, just take this time in college to figure out who you are and what you like, not even subject wise, but maybe also subject wise. But what do you like in people? What do you not like? Because we talked about in an early episode, like college was probably the most difficult time of my life, mentally, definitely confidence wise. I mean, it was really hard for some reason. And I want her to have such a good college experience, which I feel like so many people do. And I feel like I never really got that. What college taught me was outside of anything academic was what I gravitated towards and what I did not, and sort of the path that I wanted to take for the rest of my 20s and what I didn't like. And so I was just telling her, see who you gravitate towards and the people who you don't hang out with them, which she's very confident in herself and she's clear. I feel like I don't know if it's just her or just in general, kids these days, they're so clear about who they are and what they want, much more so than I was. But if something doesn't, for instance, the finance class, if you're not good at something, or if you don't feel passionate about something, or you don't have that inner drive to make sure that you're really into something because somebody else is into that, like everybody's different. And also, it doesn't mean that you're not smart or you're bad at something just because that's not something you're interested in or your brain doesn't work that way. I feel like in college, I put so much pressure on myself to do certain things or to be a certain way or to excel at certain things. And that just was not me at all. And so I think that's actually why I had such a tough college experience. But you just never know where you're going to end up or what you're going to do. Just have fun in college and don't let it define your attitude too much because you never know.
I was a hot mess in college. So yeah. Is there anything you've had to unlearn or you've had to shift since owning our business?
Well, I think I've had to unlearn some anxious habits for sure. I've had to unlearn that when something, I think what I used to do is when something went wrong, I would immediately try to analyze it and like fix it in the most anxious way possible. And I think with owning a business, I've had to control my anxiety a lot. And I think I've gotten really good at knowing what I can control and knowing what I cannot control. And so that's really helped me with moving the needle and improving things that are able to be improved. And there's a lot with what we do that is within our control, and there's things that are not, like life just happens, or when we're on site at an event, and we've mentioned before we had a ceiling fall down the night before the event and the whole welcome space was ruined. And so I think another thing is learning how to trust people to take care of things, because with what we do, so many people have to come together to make something happen. And it's been a good lesson for me just in talking about control and having to relinquish some of that and just trust other people on our team or our vendors or even our clients to get things done, because it's such a team effort that we have to lead. So we still have to lead, but we have to trust other people and delegate things to those people so that we have a finished product at the end of the day. And I don't think that's something that I was very good at before this. How about you?
I think similarly, part of what you were discussing is delegating. I think I always, just in life, kind of did everything for myself. And I was always kind of an individual contributor. Also, when I worked internally, of course, I worked with teams, but we're kind of in IC in this type of a role. And so when we owned our business for the first 3 years, we had no other employees. We've discussed it. Obviously, the first year and a half was the height of COVID. So there wouldn't have been much for someone else to do. However, once we started to hire people, being able to delegate has not been something that comes naturally to me, but now I don't necessarily think twice. And then also trusting others to do things, not just with our employees, but, similar to what you said with vendors, we're hiring others for their expertise. We're experts in the production, but if we're hiring, um, an audiovisual company that we work time and time again with, we trust them. So we just got to let it go. I also think that something that has shifted for me is I definitely am a person that has been a glasses half empty person, but I think I've become more positive over time with having a business because I think that I have a lot more gratitude. I don't know if I was always the most gracious person in the world. So I will admit that. A little bit of a cynic in the world. And I think that it's helped me with my more positive outlook on life. And I think just the fact that, kind of tying into the first question that we had, things kind of work out the way that they're supposed to. And I don't always love that phrase because sometimes shit happens in people's lives. I'm not talking about business, but bad things can happen in people's lives. And I don't like when people are like, well, everything happens for a reason, because you're still in it and that kind of sucks, whatever might have happened to you. But just having a different lens on things and taking what maybe was negative and allowing yourself to understand that it creates a different perspective on something is positive to me.
So let's talk about, because we knew each other before starting the business and we worked together before starting the business, I want to know what you think has changed or improved the most in me from then to now. And then I'll say this is my answer about you.
Be putting on the spot over here.
Podcast
Well,
on the
I think
spot.
I know what you're good at, and I'm not sure I knew you were that good at it then, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just from having worked with you now for so long. Because just to go back on how we met 10 years ago, we worked internally and there were a lot of aspects that we never touched. So I didn't see that in you, right? So just owning our business now, it's not just producing the events. Like when we worked internally, we didn't do business aspects of the company that we were at. We just produced the events. And so I knew obviously you were great at producing events and you still are. However, I've been very impressed with just how you're very business savvy. I don't have a business background and I've learned to be good in some aspects of business, but I admire that. And I think you're very good at the things that go behind running a business, and particularly in you're much better at numbers than I am. I can't say that's my best thing. And just to go a little bit deeper into that, you know a lot about scaling a business and you've learned a lot about scaling a business, because we can all chug along and just keep doing the same thing that we're doing and never grow. But that's something that you have a lot of interest in, and that I think you've been very good about. And you've opened my mind to that as well, because my brain doesn't naturally kind of go there. I think I'm good at other things, and maybe you'll touch upon those. But you've taught me a lot in that, but you're very much a pro in that regard.
Wow, such a compliment. It's funny because we never talk about this stuff. In our day to day, we're getting shit done and on Zoom calls and dealing with stuff. So we never really sit down and have targeted questions, which is interesting. So for you, I would say you are which working together, I knew. And Meredith was actually my boss when we were working together. So she always told me never burn a bridge because you don't know how that person might come back around or in your into your life again. Which for me, I don't know if it's just my personality type, but I am not good at staying in touch with people, and I never really felt a need to. And because I think I work from a place of just efficiency. And so to me, if somebody's not really in, it sounds bad probably, I don't know, but if somebody's not really in my orbit, they're like out of my brain because I feel like I can only hold so many things in my brain at once. It's this weird thing. So if something is not of top elite priority, then I don't think about it at all. And that's something that is completely different between us because I knew that about you then, and I knew that you were very thoughtful and had a good memory and remembered things about people, remembers everybody's names, remember everybody's kids' names, dogs' names. I mean, it's just an amazing skill that you have. You're very sharp in that way. And that has served our business so well and come back tenfold into getting prospects and clients. And I mean, our business is all word of mouth, and getting the prospect just to have that initial meeting with us that then of course leads to many calls and closing deals and expanding relationships and grows throughout the years. But that initial touch point that Meredith has where she remembers something about someone, or she, even with our vendors and people outside of our clients, just people come to mind for you. You have a mental Rolodex of people, and you're also very personable. So you do things in such a thoughtful way and reach out to people and send gifts to people. And it comes from a place of like authenticity. Like it's not just about business. And that's not something that I have. I've learned a lot from Meredith with that, but I don't know if that's something that I ever will have. So I think that very personal, authentic touch and keeping people in mind has definitely, I mean, paid off for us. And it's great that that is part of our business because if I were doing this on my own, I don't think that I would have the wherewithal to run the business and be able to think of those things. So, anyway, all of that to say, you are right that it always comes back around. And when you leave a touch point with people, even if it's meeting somebody for the first time or you've worked at a company with somebody for 4 years, and in my mind, I'm like, I won't ever see these people again. Like, I don't know why I think that way. I think I'm just a very solo, I have this very solo mindset, and I've always been that way. And I don't know why, but you remember that everything is a community and it's a network, and you're probably going to end up talking to those people again. I think we have a catch up call with somebody who we worked with 10 years ago today. And it's so important to keep those relationships and those connections alive, just from a personal life standpoint and a business standpoint, because you never know what's going to happen.
That's a compliment. Thank you.
So we talked a little bit about how we personally have changed on a personal level from owning a business, and like the biggest quality that's shifted. Let's talk about how our impression and understanding of possibilities has changed from running the business. So I think something that is so big for me, and Meredith and I actually had a call with another one of our old coaches the other day. And she, of course, has her own business and she's seen our business grow so much. And it was really interesting because she actually revisited the first notes from the first meeting that we had with her. So we worked with her for probably 6 to 8 months. And in the first meeting, she asked us, where do we want to see the business go and grow in 1, 5, and 10 years, I think? And where do we want our personal lives to go and grow in 1, 5, and 10 years? And so we worked with her probably we finished working with her probably about a year ago, and I went back to the year goals, and we accomplished all of them, and without referring to that sheet. I don't think I've seen that sheet since our first call with her, and so it was really interesting, and just this moment of when we want something, we just go after it, and I think owning the business has taught me so much about what is possible in life and what is possible to create for yourself. Not to get too like woo woo, but she was talking about how owning a business is also such a spiritual journey of wanting things and manifesting things if you believe in that, which I do, and putting the possibilities out there. You have to know what you want to then make things happen for yourself, whether that's through working hard or sometimes things just fall together and things happen. I mean, we've had so many things happen where it's been like, wow, do you remember when we talked about that we wanted that to happen and it just happened and we kind of forgot about it and now it's come to fruition. All of that to say there are so many possibilities of which way the business can go or which way financially you can go because that's all tied to the business or which way your team, which is your support structure and you rely on them so heavily with trusting them and take care of things with them. And there's so many possibilities of ways that that can range one way or another. And I think owning the business has just taught me that again, if it is to be, it's up to me or it's up to us. And what I want, I can make happen for myself. And I don't think I really grasped that before because when we started the business, we were hustling so hard and hoping and wishing and praying that things would work out and we would just close this deal or get this teeny amount of money or teeny contract. And as we did that, we believed in ourselves more and more and more. And I think I often say to you, those people who we were back then, if they saw us right now, sitting here in these chairs and, doing a podcast because it's fun or seeing the large scale events and contracts that we're doing all over Europe and every major city in the US. We're traveling 24/7. Which is hard. It comes with hard things, but there are so many beautiful things about it. And I think our former selves would be so proud of us now.
Agreed. So the business stuff, I see eye to eye with you on that. And that's actually been something that I found interesting, that even though you and I are very different in many ways, we've always kind of had the same visions and goals. So looking back at that paperwork, for example, with our original coach, we were always pretty aligned on those things. So I think that hits the nail on the head for me. But also on a personal level, I think I've been more open, kind of tying back to what we discussed earlier with my positivity and just my self-growth journey. I'm much more open to trying new things that I normally wasn't. I mean, I guess I am a stubborn person, but I just wasn't like, I just thought, do it the way that that's comfortable. And I've done so much self-help in the last probably 3 to 5 years with various personal coaches. I had a wonderful manifestation coach that I'm hoping is going to be on next season. I just talked to her yesterday, but she's very inspiring to me and helped me a lot. And I've done a lot of workshops. I was at a retreat in Mallorca earlier this year that was self-help, but will also help me a lot with the person that I can be in a business environment. So I would say that's the biggest change for me is my openness. I'm really open with the business and seeing different tracks and different ways that it can go. Obviously, we're doing a podcast right now. This is something that when we started our business, we probably didn't think we'd want to do, but different partnerships. I think I've just become the creative juice in me has kind of risen again. And I was a little bit suppressed for many, many years. I think when I worked in corporate, I missed that aspect of myself a lot. And I am a naturally creative person. And it's funny because on my Enneagram, it said that as well, but I really lost myself in that. And like, I kind of just didn't feel creative. I don't have to be doing arts and crafts to do it. I think that was something always in my head because I was a fine arts person, but I can be creative with business too. It doesn't have to be a certain way I thought it would have to be.
Sounds like it's really opened your mind to how you can grow as a person. And I would also like to say that, again, your destiny is in your own hands when you start a business. And if you want something to happen, nobody's going to make it happen for you. You have to make it happen for yourself. So, on my side, talking about the business possibilities and growth, and Meredith talking about the personal possibilities and growth, it also has given us the means financially, time wise, the inspiration. And, I think we meet so, even just on this podcast, but in our daily lives, on our calls, at our events, we meet some of the smartest, most tapped in, tuned in, sharpest, most creative people. The people in our network now and our clients and our partners, people who we have day to day interactions with are so fascinating to me. And we've learned so much from them. And so I think that just it shows you what the possibilities are professionally and personally, because I think we've had interactions with so many people that we never would have. And so if we know you or if we've interacted with you, thank you so much for inspiring us and helping us on this journey.
Thank you.
So, with what I just said about if we've interacted with you, thank you so much for being a part of our journey and inspiring us. And if you're listening to this podcast, thank you so much for listening, and reach out to us and let us know who you want from our network or otherwise on future episodes, and what you want to see and what you want to hear about. This has obviously been so much fun for us and such a creative experience. And we don't know who's going to listen to it, but it might just be us. Who knows? Who cares? It's been so fun. It's been like such a fun creative outlet, I think, this year. So thanks for listening.
And we appreciate, I know that podcasts take people's time from their day, but the fact that you're listening, we're very, very grateful for it.
That's officially a wrap on season 1 of the Eventful podcast. We hope you had as much fun listening as we did creating this season. We're already cooking up some exciting things for next season. We'll be back soon with more stories, more amazing guests, more strategy, and of course, more chaos and tea. Until then, thank you for listening, sharing, and being a part of this with us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at the handle @theeventfulpod, and we'll see you soon.